My name is Sandeep PB, and today I will be taking you through the different components of Azure Databricks, mainly what is Azure Databricks and the basics of Azure Databricks and some of the things in Spark. So these are the topics that we are actually going to cover today. There are various topics I have listed here. You can see that, and I'm quickly going to the next slide. Uh, okay. So before going to the details of Azure Databricks, let me give you an introduction of some of the other Azure components, which is very important you to know when implementing a Microsoft Azure infrastructure and developing data transformations using Azure Data. So what is a data lake? Okay, so what is a data lake? Data lake is actually a storage repository that can store large amount of structured, semi-structured and unstructured data from variety of sources. So that the main thing when we discuss about the data lake is that it is highly scalable and data can be stored in its native format with no fixed limits in the size of the data. So it is the cost effective way to store all the data of an organization for later processing or the later transformations on or data analytics, do the data analytics operations. So what is Azure Data Lake? Okay, so this is data lake. What is Azure Data Lake? So in case of Azure, the data lake is a public cloud service. Okay, that means the storage and computing services offered by a third-party provider like Microsoft over the public internet. That is called a public cloud service, right? So if you ask me the question, like what is the difference between a data lake and the data warehouse, the very simple answer is that both data lake and data warehouse are widely used for storing the big data, but data lake primarily store the raw data. That is also called unprocessed data, right? That means data can be stored in its native format, that is in its original format, and the schema can be defined later. So as you all know, what is a raw data? A raw data is nothing but data that has not yet been processed for a purpose. Okay. But coming to the data warehouse, what is a data warehouse? A data warehouse is intended to store the processed and the refined data. That means that normally in a data warehouse, a schema will be defined before the data is loaded. Okay, and coming back to the Azure Data Lake, the Azure Data Lake is based on the YARN Cluster Resource Management Platform, YARN, YARN. So as you all know, YARN is a resource manager which governs all the data processing resources in a Hadoop cluster. Okay, so coming to the next slide, uh, talking about the Azure storage. So when it comes to the Azure storage, there are various Azure storage services you can use to store the data, such as Azure Blob Storage is there, Azure Data Lake Store is there, Gen 1, Gen 2, etc. Okay. So my understanding is when there is a storage account actually required to access Azure storage services, which will be a pay-as-you-go model. That means it gives you the flexibility of paying only for what you have used. Okay, the blob storage is actually good for storing the non-text-based files, as you all know, such as the database backups, photos, videos, and audio files. Also, you can store the massive amount of data. Whereas the data lake store, okay, I feel it is better for storing the large volume of text data. So I would choose actually the data lake store if my data format is text CSV file or something like that. Okay, such as CSV file loaded into my data warehouse, load into my data warehouse. Okay, but you can use the blob storage that is for non-text based data. So also data lake store will provide some additional opportunities for the analytics, specifically the Azure Data Lake Analytics, that is the ability to use the SQL to do some analytics on top of the data in your data lake store, which we cannot do with the blob storage. That is very important you to know. Okay, so coming to Apache Spark, the basics of Apache Spark I'm going to cover here. So there is an introduction about the Apache Spark, because Apache Spark is the backbone of Azure Data Lake, I would say, Azure Databricks, I would say. So if you don't know Spark actually, you won't be able to develop applications utilizing Databricks. Okay, so as you all know, in big data ecosystem tools, Spark is a distributed data processing framework. So compared to other ecosystem tools, such as Spark has the highly scalable architecture which support for the distributed processing. It has a nicely developed data processing framework, um, make use of the in-memory processing. Okay, and as a result, the Spark framework can quickly perform the data transformation task on very large amount of data sets. So when we talk about Spark, there are two things I have to mention here. The mainly two things: the RDD and DAG. RDD means the resilient distributed data set. That meaning the data recycling. So what is a resilient distributed data set? Okay, as the name indicates, it is the way of data stored distributed in a very efficient manner for quick processing. So here resilient meaning, what is the meaning of resilient? It can recover the data on failure, right? And the distributed meaning, what is that? Data distributed among different nodes. And finally the data set, resilient distributed data set. What is a data set? A group of data that are distributed and stored in a resilient way and processed in memory on the worker node. So as you all know, Spark follows a lazy evaluated method, right? That means when data transformations like the map operation or filter operation is called, it is not going to executed by Spark immediately, but that is executed only when a Spark action is called, like a collect or take or function. I mean, collect action or take action or something like that. Okay, so each Spark transformation functions produces a new RDD from the existing RDDs. That means a lineage is created for each transformation. Or in another way, each RDD maintains a pointer to one or more of its parent RDDs along with the metadata information. So, so that each RDD will have a lineage, and what is the use of that is a lineage will keep track of what all transformations has to be applied on that particular RDD. That is called a lineage. So including that includes the location of where it has to be read the data, etc. So in this way, it is called resilient. Okay, that means that is Spark architecture can be easily recovered from data failure or any other failure. It can easily recover data on failure. Okay, and coming to the directed acyclic graph (DAG), it represents the sequence of computation of the data. In another word, it's a collection of all the RDDs and the corresponding transformations on them. When a Spark action is called, the DAG, that is the collection of RDD and the corresponding transformations on them, will be given to the DAG scheduler, which is then divided into stages. And how this is happening is like from the logical execution plan, that is a RDD lineage graph. RDD lineage graph is the logical execution plan. It creates the physical execution plan. From the logical execution plan, it creates the physical execution plan. And then the physical execution plan will be divided into stages and will create the stages of task. And the task scheduler actually launches the task via the cluster resources managers, like with the help of YARN. Okay, so actually you will be familiar with this when you learn more about. I mean, you will be familiar with this kind of what is the transformations, what is the Spark actions, when you learn more about the Spark transformations and actions. So here actually I'm not going to dig into the details of that, because our main areas of concentration is the database. So you should learn Spark thoroughly before going to start with the Databricks program or etc. Okay, so Spark support actually SQL languages like the Spark SQL to query the data from Hive tables and Bucket files. That is for structured data processing. And there's a machine learning library consists of many algorithms and utilities for data analytics. So the Spark streaming API for real-time analytics. There is a graphics API, and the Spark and the plugin play with different types of resource managers like Yarn. Then Spark has the real-time or the batch data processing capability. So executing an Apache Spark application consists of two main components: the driver and executor. That is also very important to know. What is a driver? A driver which converts the user call into multiple tasks that can be distributed across the worker nodes. So what is a worker node then? A worker node is nothing but any node that can run your application code written in your fabric programming language. Like you can write your programming language in R, Scala, Python or Java. So that node is called the worker node. So what is an executor then? An executor which runs on the worker node. So execute the task assigned to the. Now, when it comes to the Spark code execution part, the Spark can run in a standalone cluster mode. So that simply requires an Apache Spark framework and JVM installed of each machine in your cluster. So also, The Spark can run using the resource managers like the Hadoopian, like the Cloudera and the Hortonworks kind of distributions. So run Spark, you're using the Hadoopian. Okay. But if you are looking for a managed solution, then Apache Spark can be found as part of the Amazon EMR or the Google Cloud Data Probe or Microsoft Azure HD Insight or Database. Okay. So I'm going to the next slide. Azure Databricks. Azure Databricks. So one of the founders of Databricks is actually wrote Spark. So Databricks is actually centered on Spark. That means you cannot use Databricks without Spark knowledge. Very important to know, you cannot use Databricks without Spark knowledge. That is very important, and the very first thing you need to know, that is the reason I explained an introduction about Spark architecture here in the presentation. Okay, so Databricks offers an analytic platform called Databricks Unified Analytic Platform. This Databricks Unified Analytic Platform is a fully managed security software as a service offering, in which there are features like we can create Apache Spark clusters, and there's a data streaming support, and there's a web-based notebook development, etc. Like that, there are many features are included. So in Databricks, you will get a web interface portal with all these kind of functions such as create workspace, create cluster, schedule your jobs, like all kind of dynamic features. So Databricks has a built-in Azure block storage connected with the help of Databricks file system. The Databricks file system is actually an abstraction layer on top of the Azure block storage. So the files that are stored to the DBFS is actually persisted to Azure block storage. So since it is stored in the Azure block storage, it is again a distributed file system. Okay, you know that, right? And the Databricks file system is mounted to the Databricks workspace and also available on the Databricks cluster. Okay, so we can see what is the Databricks workspace and the Databricks clusters in the upcoming slides. Okay. Also, one of the thing you need to notice here is that your Databricks account does not comes with the default block storage. But you can mount Azure Blobster with your Databricks with the help of DBM. So how to mount is actually very simple. That is very well explained in the Databricks website. Okay. So coming to why we use Azure Databricks. Okay. Why we use Azure Databricks. So nowadays, when we try everything to the cloud, right? For example, the projects actually currently running on the cloud on-premise environment. They are actually moving to the Azure cloud-based service. So let's see what are the main things we consider when we implement a modern data lake, Azure Data Lake, with the help of the latest cloud technology. Okay, normally how we will create a modern data lake is that it is going to be a storage that can that contains everything related to a company or organization. That's a central storage repository actually capable of storing the large amount of data from a variety of sources. That means the internal and external sources. And also a data lake is building to hold various types of data in its original format. Okay, that is shown in the picture. Pictorial representation you can see here. So in case of Azure platform, it will be Azure Block Storage or Azure Data Lake Gen 1 or Gen 2. So once we decided a central data storage layer, then we will be having an ETL solution for getting the data from various sources and push it to the destination. That is called data ingestion process, as you know, right? What is data ingestion? So then we have to decide, once the data ingestion is decided, then we have to decide and use a compute environment. That is very important, a compute environment. So that a compute environment, what is a compute environment? That is specifically for data that cannot be processed using the standard relational database management system, that cannot be stored in an RDBMS and processed with the help of relational database management system because of huge size. That is one reason, or it is unstructured. That is another reason, etc. There are many reasons like that. Okay, or any these it cannot be processed or with the help of any of these kind of traditional approaches. Okay, so suppose if you have a large amount of data which is unstructured, so that it cannot be processed using traditional techniques. Same as in case of structured or any semi-structured data. So you have to make use of big data ecosystem tools like the MapReduce, Hive, HBase, Spark, or modern cloud solutions like Azure Databricks integrated with Azure's integrated with Apache Spark to perform transformations on that kind of data, big data. So even if we consider a data lake as a storage in modern data lake implementation, we still implement a structured data warehouse So here actually we use the SQL data warehouse for the structure. This is actually once the data is actually transformation is executed, we will be converting that into a particular star schema based model, something like that. That is a fact based schema. There is a central fact table, and that is joined with the dimension. That is up to based on your requirement and business requirement. If there is a need, you can pull your data, push your data into that star schema based model, and then to use the Power BI, then to feed to the Power BI report. So what is the scope of Azure Databricks in that? So Azure Databricks can be used here to process the data. Okay, that is the very important. The processing of the data, the ingestion is happening from different sources to the Azure Data Lake. Then after the ingestion, if you want to process the data, meaning if you want to execute transformations, apply the business load, then the Azure Databricks comes into the picture. So data transformations, like as I said, like apply the business rules on very large amount of data. So in a very effective way, we can use the Azure Databricks for such that kind of transformations. But it is not just for processing the structure or semi-structured data. It is also used for purposes like the machine learning predictions kind of things. Like the anomaly detection is one of the some scenario. Machine learning. Okay, the real-time streaming and processing, etc. So there are many scenarios actually we can use the Azure Databricks for processing, transformations, and predicting. Okay, so what is Azure Databricks exactly? So Databricks is an Apache Spark-based analytics service. Okay, it can be used for data processing or data analytics in batch, stream, or real time. Also, it supports various languages like Scala, Python, R, and Java. And that is Databricks. What is Azure Databricks? It is a combination of best of Databricks and best of Microsoft Azure. It's a native service available on Azure. So the setup is actually very simple. How to set up the Azure Databricks? The setup is actually very simple. You can get your environment and clusters ready in your cloud platform within minutes, and you can import features like the auto scale and auto run. So the scalability. The scalability is actually very important in the big data environment, right? So when we talk about the distributed processing, we need to decide how many number of compute nodes or the worker nodes we want to process. We want for processing our data set. Okay. So same times, for example, sometimes we may need 5 number of nodes for processing the data, or sometimes we need 10 number of nodes, or sometimes we do not know what exact number of nodes we need to process the or transform the data. So Azure Databricks allows you to set up the minimum and the maximum number of nodes in the cluster configuration. So based on the workload, Azure Databricks will intelligently identify or decide how many number of nodes are required to process the data or handle the data. So this feature is also called the cluster auto scale, and it has the 3 main advantages. Save the money. That means in a cluster, only the required number of nodes will be up and running to process the data. Other scenarios like if you don't know how many number of nodes are required to process your data, then this auto scale feature will be very helpful. Other scenarios like suppose your application is dealing with very large amount of data in morning hours, but very small amount of data in evening hours. So you don't need to create any manual transition strategy or something like that to scale up the cluster, scale up and down the cluster. But Databricks will auto scale and scale up and down based on the load of the data. Okay. Another feature, important feature, is called auto terminate, which is nothing but shut down the cluster if no one is used. This is another way to save the cluster running cost. Okay. So how to start with Azure Databricks? You need to get your environment ready. That is called the Azure Databricks workspace. You can create multiple workspaces using Azure subscription, but generally you need only one. Okay, and your team members can work with that workspace. Okay, so how to create a workspace? So I'm actually not able to demo it because we don't have an Azure account right now, but I will explain steps my level best. So for that, you should go to the Azure portal. Then you need to type the address, site address in the browser, and Azure Databricks logo will be there. And inside that Azure portal, Azure Databricks logo will be there. You click on that logo, you will be an option to create the workspace. There will be an add button. Then you need to name your workspace. Then you need to select your subscription, create the resource group. So what is the resource group? That is very important to know. Resource group is actually an Azure approach to group a collection of nodes in a logical group for easy provisioning or monitoring and access control for the workflow. And this is also for effective management for Azure. So after selecting the resource group, you need to select the location based on your region, then the pricing tier, and finally click on click. That will launch the workspace for you. Okay. So once you launch the workspace, you will see there are several options in the home page, something like this. In another way, it's a nicely developed web user interface for accessing all your Azure Databricks features. That is called Azure Workspace. So here you can see there are different features: notebook, create the cluster, new job, etc. etc. There are many things you can see, right? So inside Azure Workspace, you can create one or more clusters. Okay, inside Azure Workspace, you can create clusters. So as you all know, a cluster is a group of computation resources. Cluster is nothing but a group of computation resources and configurations in which Azure Databricks run your data processing or the data manipulations on data analytics jobs. So a cluster contains a fixed number of nodes. There's an option to also, or we can, there's an option to set auto scale more. Same thing I just explained, right? What is auto scale? How to scale, automatically scale up and scale down the cluster with the help of Databricks. How to auto terminate the cluster. All thing I explained just now. So I am not going to explain it again. So there are actually two types of cluster at a very high level: the interactive and job cluster. Interactive cluster is used for the interactive data analytics with the help of notebook. So interactive cluster is also called the all-purpose cluster, okay, in which you can create the cluster using the UI, or the UI interface, or the CLI, or the REST API. An interactive cluster, you can manually create it, edit, and terminate. Okay. A job cluster is different. Job cluster is also known as the automated cluster. That is, spin up the cluster, a new cluster via the job scheduler, and it will actually automatically terminate the cluster when the job is completed. Okay, that is, it is used to run the automated job. You cannot restart or modify the job cluster. Okay, so like I said, a cluster can be created via web user interface, the command line interface, or the REST API. So let's see how we can create the cluster from the Databricks UI. Okay, so again, I'm not able to demo it, but I will just explain how to create the cluster. For that, you need to click on the clustering on the Databricks homepage, then click on the create cluster. After that, you have to give the cluster name, then select the cluster mode. You can see the screenshot here, right? There are two cluster modes: the standard and high concurrency. Then select the Databricks runtime version. It is better to pick always the latest one version of your programming language and the Spark framework version. Then select auto scale or terminate options. Next, you have to choose the worker type and its number of nodes. Select the specification for your worker nodes from the available drop-down list. So there are different types of memory and cores are available. Choose the best one fit to your data processing job. So in the initial stages of the project, basically in the initial stages of a project development, we may need to do a detailed price and performance benchmarking with the data by choosing the different node type. So to identify which what is the worker type to select, what is the node type to select, that is not a constant thing. There is no thumb of rule. We need to execute and do a detailed price and benchmarking on your data in your development environment to choose best worker node and driver type. Okay. So this is the actually the minimum configurations actually required for creating the cluster. So when you click on the create cluster, you can see the button here, right? The blue button. When you click on the create cluster, the cluster will be created. Normally, it will take some minutes to create the cluster. Okay, so that is based on the cluster availability, resource availability. So normally, it will take 4 to 5 minutes. So once the cluster is created, we can make the use of the make use of it for the data processing part. Okay. And also in the cluster UI, we have a number of basic options. You can see here. We can clone a cluster. That means almost copy paste our existing cluster. That is called edit a cluster configuration, start and terminate the cluster, delete the cluster, etc. And the cluster log, right? We can specify a location of our cluster log when we create the cluster. So the cluster running log will be delivered to the chosen destination. So in every 5 minutes normally. So normally a cluster log will be configured with a DBFS location, which is mounted to the Azure storage. Okay. So there is a the Spark UI. So Spark UI tab for the cluster. Each cluster is will have a Spark UI tab. So this is for monitoring the Spark job for running the cluster, such as view all the Spark jobs, the text, check the tags in Spark, check all the cached RDBs, check all the logs for finished Spark job. This is actually the same as the normal Spark UI, right? If you are familiar with Spark, you would be already knowing this, like what is Spark UI now. If you don't know, you need to study well what is Spark and how the Spark UI can be configured. There is nothing to configure how the Spark UI can be make use of debugging a particular application. Okay, so what is Databricks Notebook? Okay, I am jumping to the database notebook quickly, very high level. There are you need to dig into the details actually, but here I am actually going to cover very high level. What is database notebook? So what is Databricks notebook is like to write instructions, we use the notebook basically. So it contains a series of runnable cells in which commands can be run in sequence. Commands meaning your transformation. So you can see one example, right? I have given a equal to 1, b equal to 2. So a plus b is your transformation. What is a plus b? It's 3. Result is 3. That is one of the simple transformation. Okay. So like this, your programming language, your business requirement can be written in the notebook side. Okay, so if you're running a Spark job from your notebook, you can see the jobs running information with the Databricks cluster Spark UI. If you're executing this notebook, the corresponding running informations will be um, um, you can see in the Spark job UI. It is same as the Spark UI, which you can run, which run the Spark job using the ordinary Spark submit. Okay, so notebook actually can be executed in two ways. Okay, the interactive execution is the scheduled job and run is there. That means interactive execution. Interactive execution meaning is like running a notebook interactively in a notebook UI. For that, you need to attach this notebook to a running cluster and click on the run options. You will run your notebook side. So these things and all actually you will be familiar when you actually get an Azure subscription and inside the Azure cluster. If you create a cluster and you try to execute a notebook, you can easily study these things. Maybe the theory part won't help you to understand much, but once you get into the actual environment, this is very easy. And the another way is like scheduled run, meaning running a notebook scheduled basis via Databricks jobs API. To create a scheduled job, there is an option to create a job in the Databricks workspace. Click on create job, select the notebook, and schedule. Okay. And we are actually moving to the last part of our presentation, that is the Databricks REST API and the Databricks CLI. So, what is a REST API? All you know, right? What is REST API? It is nothing but a communicate between two systems with the help of HTTP protocol. That is, a system makes an HTTP request to the URL hosted by another system, which returns a response. So Databricks provide a various REST API endpoints, which helps external system to perform different tasks like the cluster creation, upload libraries to the DBFS, and attach to the cluster, run the Spark jobs with the help of REST API, etc. Okay, and the Databricks CLI. So on the other than the REST API, the Databricks comes with a CLI tool that is called the Database Command Line Interface. CLI, Command Line Interface. This is another way to interact with the database. It's very easy to use interface, and this interface is built on top of the Databricks REST API. So to configure the CLI in your local command prompt or in any of the virtual machines, you need the Databricks personal access token. So um, that is you will need to provide the Databricks host address and the token in order to authenticate and configure in your local environment. So once it is ready, you can execute commands like list all the workspace you created, list all the clusters inside the workspace, and the cluster get the cluster ID, check the cluster running status, whether it is running or finished or what is the status of execution. So like that way, the Databricks CLIs enable you to manage all the aspects of Databricks. Okay, so that's all about the Databricks REST API and the classic. Okay, so this is the end of our slide or presentations, and I hope you got a very basic idea about what is Databricks and all. Thank you so much. Bye. See you in the next one.